A mistake in this real estate market could cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Let's make sure you're making decisions based on data, not guesswork. In this video, I'm breaking down the latest single-family homes real estate data in Jupiter. We're going to go through things like median pricing, how long it's taking to sell a home, how much inventory we have, and whether the market's shifting in your favor. My name is Prindle, your Jupiter Realtor, and every month I break down the real numbers to help buyers and sellers, just like you, make data-driven real estate decisions. Let's dive into the May 2025 Jupiter Real Estate Market Report. All right, median price of a single-family home in Jupiter is now $945,000. For those of you that have not really watched me before, I don't put a whole lot of stock in this median price number. I know a ton of people love to look at median pricing. When we're looking at just Jupiter, I do not like to use this as one of my favorite metrics simply because we don't have enough sales to make this a smooth chart. If you look, it's just kind of a messy zigzag everywhere. The only thing that I really do want you to take from this is maybe a few things. First of all, over the last 5 years, pricing is up, right? You can safely say that. Over the last 5 years, median pricing has risen in Jupiter. You can also say it peaked here, June of 2023. You can also look and say for the last couple of years anyways, we've been somewhat range bound. So we're just kind of looking to see if something breaks below here, but again, just don't take a whole lot from this. But let's move on to a statistic that I do find much more meaningful. All right, 105 sales. Now look, not a whole lot else matters more than how many people are stepping forward and actually buying a property, right? Very important statistic for us to look at. Year over year from 95 to 105 sales. Here's what I do want to highlight. We have seasonality that very strongly exists here in Jupiter. I want to look back at pretty much every chart we can find. May, we peaked in July. Peaked in June, peaked in May, peaked in June, peaked in May. This data is through through April. So what history tells us is we should have one more good print here before we likely fall back down, because look what happens. July, we fall down. June, we fall down. Happens every year. This is just how seasonality works, right? So if you're a seller, this means, look, you really, if you want to catch the best time in the market, you have another handful of days to get your property on the market. Otherwise, you're kind of going to enter into that summer slide. Buyers, here's where we are a little bit different. A lot of places in the country, the summer is the strongest months for single-family home sales because people who have children will move in the summertime so that they don't disrupt their kids' school schedules. And if they're switching schools, they can get that all arranged in the summer. Not really what happens here, but here's why that's great if that's your situation. Because if you come in say August and you come shopping for a home, you're going to know there's not as many other buyers around, right? So the summer is a pretty good time for buyers. It's not to say it's a bad time for sellers. It's just to say if you're using seasonality, you really want to have it listed on the market by now. So that's what I got there for you. All right, sold to list price ratio. This is the percentage of a sales price that an original listing sales price that homes on average are closing at. So we can see we're called 5% off of listing price. Of course, a higher number on this chart, like up here, is good for sellers. Means whatever you're asking, you're getting, over 100%. Back here, and here, we're looking 95%. Just call it roughly, round the math off. So there's a couple of ways that people want to use this chart. First, if you're a buyer and you want to fire an offer off that's 20% below asking price, you're probably not going to get too far, right? We're averaging 5% off. sellers, if you listed a property and you just say, nope, not negotiating, I'm sticking to this price, I get my price or nothing, you're probably missing the boat because most people are having to show some room for negotiation. So that's how to read this chart. I think it's an interesting, good chart to look at, just to kind of tell you, give you a good gauge on what you have to do if you're a buyer or a seller and who the market's better for at this time. All right, if you're looking to purchase a property in Jupiter or North Palm Beach County area, here's what you do. Give me a call, 786-443-7203. It's the easiest way. If you want to text me, I guess that's fine. If you're too scared to call or text me, you could email me at caseyprindle@gmail.com. Either way, let's start having conversations sooner rather than later. It's going to help you and me out the sooner that we start talking. All right, median days. That's the median number of days it's taking to sell a home here in Jupiter. All right, median days are going to be the number of days a home was actively listed until it went pending. So this isn't all the way through closing. So if you have a 30 or 45 day close, you have to add 30 or 45 days onto the end of this. If you want to know how long you're actually going to be moving into a house from the time you made an offer, or how long until you get money in your bank account. Just median on average. I do like looking at this statistic just for some color here. Look, I think if you look across this chart, I think reasonably you could say probably 40 days, maybe a little bit less, is more kind of the middle of this chart. So I do think we're on the higher side of the chart. Again, we just talked about seasonality. I expect this to rise going into the summer. We'll see what happens, but that's just kind of what I'm expecting, which in the end, that's going to be better news for buyers. All right, so this is another stat, median square foot pricing, that I love to use, but not when just looking at Jupiter. Look, go all the way back here to March of 23. We've just been between $400 and $500 a foot, right? We're over 2 years of this now. So I just don't think it's that meaningful. Again, if you want to take something from it overall, price per square foot has risen over the last handful of years. This chart isn't as chaotic. And I think there's a reason for it. There was a lot of people watching HGTV back here that wanted to make a renovation their own, and then those people learned that's a lot harder than it looks. And the good stuff sells at a higher price per square foot. In the market now, buyers are just looking for turnkey homes. They're not looking for DIY projects and make it their own. The vast majority anyways. You'd be an outlier buyer if you're looking for the fixer-upper. So that's what I think you take from this chart. All right, over $196 million in total dollar volume. Now we're going to get into why I tell you not to look at this so closely when you're looking just at Jupiter. The top 5 sales last month. You know how much they accounted for? 66 million of this volume. 66 million of the 196,000. So this is why I tell you don't really use this. We have too many large dollar properties that can really swing this volume, because had those 5 sales not happened, we would be somewhere down around here, right? So just I don't know. The sample size is too small. Jupiter's marketplace is too divergent in order to really use this. That being said, I am expecting over the next 2 months for the total dollar volume to expand. If it doesn't, it would kind of be an anomaly the next month or two. Because again, let's go back and look. Where do we go? We peak in May, peak in June. Every year is pretty much the same. So we got another month or two run of higher volume before we should probably start to slide off for the next handful of months. All right, so there is a lot of data when it comes to Palm Beach County real estate. Not a whole lot when it comes specifically to Jupiter, which is why I try to do these videos for everybody. But look, these charts aren't going to apply to everybody. For example, if you're looking at a waterfront home, we're going to have to segment out how the waterfront market is doing versus the non-waterfront market. Let's say you're looking out in Jupiter Farms where I live, zip code 33478. That's going to be different than zip code 33458. You're also going to want to know how that stuff has performed historically. So anyways, I put again a bunch of reports together to create kind of subsets within Jupiter. So if there's a specific property type or location that you're looking at, this is a good entry point into the statistics, but have a conversation with me. We're going to want to dig in deeper in order to get you a more refined set. And again, easiest way is to call me, 786-443-7203. Text me there if you want. Email me if you're shy, caseyprindle@gmail.com. Let's keep moving. All right, on to my favorite statistic, month supply of inventory. You want to ask me about the health of the marketplace? I'm going to want to know what supply and demand looks like and what inventory looks like, right? So here we are. All right, so over the last 12 months, we're up 17%. So that's better for buyers, right? Higher we are on this chart, the better it is for buyers because they have more choice. The lower it is on the chart, the better it is for sellers. Nationally, 6 months is considered to be a balanced market, favoring neither buyers nor sellers. Draw a line across here. 6 months is not what our marketplace looks like. Our average, I would say, is closer to 4, right? Something like that. So if we used that adjusted number for Jupiter, I would say we're more in a buyer's market than we are in a seller's market. I'll tell you, kind of boots on the ground, it certainly feels like that. I would rather be a buyer right now than a seller if I'm in Jupiter, a single family home. I will tell you that for sure. I think I can have a lot of wiggle room on negotiation and find some pretty good deals out there. Look, there's only two things that change this chart. Either more inventory coming to market or the pace of sales increasing or decreasing. Sellers have been exceptionally lucky that even though we've had more supply hitting on the market, it's been getting absorbed. This is going to become a real problem for sellers if inventory hits the market and sales slow and, our inventory number rises because the new listings rise, the pace stays the same or slows. It's going to be a big headwind for sellers. Now remember, we've been talking about seasonality. We are expecting, if you follow the rest of the charts, for supply here to increase after next month, probably, maybe one more month. And then I think we kind of see this bounce up for a few months. So just be prepared if you are a seller for that to come. Buyers, of course, this is going to be a good thing for you. Doesn't mean that people are giving away the price of the house. Doesn't mean that housing prices are going to collapse. That's all nonsense. Don't listen to it. I think the national media is now putting out there at a fast and furious pace that the housing market is slowing. If you were listening to me, we can go back almost 2 years at this point, year and a half anyways. If you were listening to me, I was telling you the market was slowing. So anyways, we'll keep an eye on this extraordinarily important statistic for people to track. All right, so final thoughts here. The real estate market is not an incredibly difficult beast for you to wrap your hands around. Prices have been rising, no doubt about it. Affordability is becoming a real issue because interest rates have risen and the price of the house has gone up. Now, all my charts are totally meaningless if interest rates somehow pull down by 2 percentage points. None of these charts, none of the season, none of that's going to matter. It's all going to go out the window. So we do have this wild variable that's out there right now. And that's what I think people really got to keep their eyes on, because it's just going to decimate every chart that there is, right? Just logically speaking, if interest rates pull down, voila, housing market's going to go wild. So I think that's something, if you're a buyer or a seller, you're going to want to keep your eye on what rates are doing on a pretty consistent basis for you to understand, is this going to be better or worse for me? Is more competition going to enter the market? Is it going to be easier or more difficult to buy a home, sell a home? A lot of it's just going to come down to interest rates. So I want everybody to keep their eye on that. Super important thing right now. My name is Casey Prindle. Thanks for watching. Always appreciate it. Once again, whether you're thinking buying or selling, please contact me. Call me 786-443-7203. You can text me, email me if you want. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next month.